Hi guys, it's time to put her up for the winter time. How to drain the lower unit oil. I was going to give you a tip. You want to take this bottom screw out first with a catch basin there. Then you want to just crack this one. If you take it all the way out, oil's going to run out here. So you want to just open it just enough to where it can suck air so it'll all come out here. You also want to make sure that you tilt your unit up so that any water that is down in through here is all going to drain out there. And I usually let it drain overnight like this. But the reason I was making this tip, I was going to show you guys how I do it. Okay, I take a large Craftsman screwdriver, the biggest blade you can get, and I attach a crescent wrench. And all you do with your left hand is push against it to hold it in the slot, and you do the turning with the wrench. And I found that helps to prevent you from boogering up the end of the nut right here, which can happen if you're trying to torque it here. Whereas if you got this amount of torque and you're pushing in here as hard as you can, it'll keep it from slipping and it'll keep your screws looking all nice and neat. So that's just a little tip on how I do it. Works really well, because these have a tendency, if it slips, it'll mess up the ends there, and then you got to buy new ones. And always change the O-rings when you fill it back up for grease. But I'll let it sit here and drain overnight. The problem is we've had 2 or 3 frosts, so that Gear Lube is going to take it forever to, because it's basically 85W90 and it's going to take it a while to drain out. But I always want to capture the first quart or so of oil as it comes out so I can analyze it and see how much water's in it. This thing was professionally rebuilt and it has leaked ever since, and it sure looks like water to me. Now when we pull the top one out, see, it doesn't have that milky appearance because that's fresh oil in the top, which tells me we can probably leave that out now, because see, that does not look like that. And there's going to be a certain point where there's going to be a color change as it's getting the fresh clean oil from the reservoir coming out. But see that? It doesn't have that white milky appearance. And I'll let it sit and see if it separates out at all. See how much water's in there. I was halfway afraid to tackle this rebuild, so I took it somewhere, and supposedly they replaced all the seals, but now it's leaking worse. I should have just done it myself. That's a lesson learned, is you're always going to do a better job yourself. There's plenty of YouTube and books out there. So let this drain till that's full, and then we'll dump the rest of it. See how we're getting a color change already? And technically we should pull the prop off, but I've never had a problem with that, and put lithium grease on the shaft, but I've never had a problem. It always seems to be a waste of time. So we're getting a color change now as the fresh clean oil is flowing down. The other reason to prop it up like this is we got a terrible 20-mile-an-hour wind, and it's going to blow grease all over the place. After it sits for a couple days and I make sure all of the dirty oil is out, you got it drained or raised up like this. You want to lower the lower unit all the way down. You want to pump from the bottom. So remember, after it sits here for a day or two and drains, See how we're getting a color change now as the fresh clean oil? Anyways, you want to fill it from the bottom and keep pumping, lower the lower unit all the way down, pump it from the bottom until it's coming out the oil level here. You want to put a new O-ring and a new screw or bolt or plug, whatever you want to call it, in there, and then you want to continue to pump until you see it coming up in the reservoir, and then you can take this one, the reservoir, I think they call it a monitor, the oil level monitor, and so you'll have this one tightened down, then you'll pull your pump mechanism out here and put your plug back in it, and then finish filling your monitor the rest of the way. So it's pretty simple, no reason to pay somebody to do that. One other thing for you do-it-yourselfers, besides greasing your wheel bearings before you put it up and drive it before you put it up for the year. Anyways, there's a grease fitting right here. You pop that cap off and put about 3 good pumps into it, and there's one on the drive shaft between the transom and the back of the engine that you need to make sure you grease. This one here goes to the gimbal bearing. Very important bearing. Make sure it's got plenty of grease in there. Problem is, if you over grease it, it goes all over on the inside of the boot. Always store your lower unit down so you don't put a memory into these bellows over the winter time. So we're just about done. I'm going to put the plugs back in it and let it sit for a day or two, pull them back in, make sure every little bit gets out. Also check the end of your, there's a magnet on the bottom of the plug, and you'll see there's some metal filings on the end of that magnet. It's what's supposed to catch your metal filings. But look how that's separating out. One other preventative thing I do on a boat is I want the gas tank as low as I can get it, and I'll put stable in that, so next year when I can have fresh gas in there and not have to burn out 9-month-old gas. I also take the carburetor off and turn it upside down and dump it out and push the accelerator pump and get all the gas out of that chamber where the accelerator pump runs. And it's pretty simple. There's only 4 bolts. If you watch my other video, 1 electric wire to the TKS, and then the throttle linkage. So that's only 1 nut and 4 bolts and 1 wire connector. And if you spray silicone, spray-on silicone on your gaskets, they won't stick, and you can use your gaskets over and over and over. That way there will be no evaporation of gas in the carburetor over the winter time, leaving a varnish behind, almost like a shellac. So if you dump your carburetor every year, you're not going to have to rebuild the carburetor